You can join me. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatadine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. One of our standard Gaudiya Vaishnava activities is honoring our great acharyas and our previous line of succession. Today happens to be the disappearance day of Baladeva Vidyabhushana, and so it's appropriate to honor him. One time during the disappearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta, Prabhupada made a strong emphasis for quite some time, explaining on the disappearance day of a great soul, spiritually the same significance is there as the appearance day of that great soul. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, the great souls, Pravishta, they enter into the spiritual realm. So they may make their appearance in this realm and honor the personality of Godhead as great souls do. And because of that absorption and honoring the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's their destination. So therefore, Prabhupada was making this, Bhaktisiddhanta was making, or Srila Prabhupada was making the statement about Bhaktisiddhanta as the same, spiritually equivalent. Of course, there's a difference of the emotion, but spiritually equivalent. This is the disappearance day of Baladeva Vidyabhushana. And for those of us in ISKCON, well, anyone that's out not in ISKCON, there's one primary glory that is ascribed to Baladeva Vidyabhushana, and that's his the manner in which he made the commentary on behalf of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas of Vedanta Sutra. I was told that everyone has already received this nice Back to Godhead article written by Dayananda and Nandarani. I mean, they're two personalities who I had some extensive association with and a lot of appreciation for. She, by profession, was an editor, so she's skilled in writing. Hare Krishna, and it shows in the way that the composition is put together. They probably spent hundreds and hundreds of hours compiling all the information, so it'll be beneficial for us to, if you haven't read through it, read through it, because there's details and subtleties that I'm not going to repeat today. But the circumstance will cover a little bit how it was that he made his commentary on Vedanta Sutra. I'll quickly repeat something that's robustly described in that article. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't personally instruct the 6 Goswamis or anyone to write a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, because it was his teaching, and it's the Bhagavatam's teaching, that the Nigama Kalpatur Galitam Palam, the ripened fruit of the desired tree of the Vedas, is this Vedanta Sutra, and its commentary, its natural commentary, is Srimad Bhagavatam. That is to say, Vyasadeva compiled Srimad Bhagavatam under the instruction of Narada Muni, and the essence of that Vedanta, of Srimad Bhagavatam, is explaining in detail the very difficult to understand and esoteric Vedanta Sutra. So Srimad Bhagavatam is an existing commentary on Vedanta Sutra, and therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't encourage anyone to write commentary, because there's already commentary. And so to not, as if to supersede a previous acharya, write commentary, it's already done. So there was no commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And at a certain point in time, we'll cover it briefly, elaborately in this Back to Godhead magazine article, there was a challenge by Sri Vaishnavas, the northern sect of Sri Vaishnavas called Ramanadis, that you Gaudiyas, you're not an authorized disciplic succession, and one of the checkpoints was you don't even have a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, because that was a hallmark or criteria or necessity to define the Sampradaya. It's a very interesting history, and the title of his commentary is called Govindabhashya because, as the document will explain, we'll touch on it a little bit, Govinda Dev, in a dream, told or instructed Baladev, just write, don't worry, it's me speaking, you just write what I dictate. So at least that's his explanation. It's Govinda speaking, so it's Govindabhashya, his commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And the credit goes to Baladev, but Baladev gives the credit to Govinda as the one who actually instructed. And you'll see as we go forward, it couldn't have been otherwise. Another very important, this is now for ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada dedicated his commentary on Bhagavad Gita to Baladev. Notice carefully in the beginning section, the dedication page, Prabhupada dedicates his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, or Bhagavad Gita as it is, to Baladev. And here's what Prabhupada has put in the beginning dedication page of his Bhagavad Gita, the Govindabhashya commentary on Vedanta philosophy. In one sense, because of the importance of this Govindabhashya in defining and establishing the credential of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And also, secondary, perhaps, when Srila Prabhupada was very busy writing his second commentary on Bhagavad Gita, because the manuscript for the first commentary was stolen, without the details of how that happened. So when writing his commentary the second time, he traveled with some very large old texts, printed texts, and one of them was Baladev's commentary. And he relied heavily. It was his Prabhupada's language, but he was very faithful to disciplic succession, and so the concepts within Bhagavad Gita as it is very closely aligned with Baladeva Vidyabhushana's commentary on Bhagavad Gita. That's the second reason for why we honor him, especially in ISKCON. And he wrote an entire commentary, as many of our acharyas have done, on Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the name of his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll hear a little bit, but it becomes important in his life that when he was very young, after he underwent elementary education, Sanskrit training, and Vyakarana, he left home and went on pilgrimage to a number of places. And one of those places he went to was a place where he resided in a temple that was under the guidance of Madhvacharya. He, as a young man, quite young man, he received sannyas, and he also received training in the teachings of Madhvacharya. And those of you that are a little bit familiar, Madhvacharya wrote extensively, and one of those writings was what he called prameyas. So we're in ISKCON, we're a little more familiar with the word pramana. Pramana. So that which makes up the pramanas are prameyas, the same Sanskrit root. It's the explanation, the 9 essential truths, or prameyas, nava prameyas. And he, Baladev, being schooled in Madhvacharya's line as a young man, he wrote what he called Prameya Ratnavali. So it's just following. It's slightly different because it's in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because in chronology he was first introduced to Madhvacharya's line and received sannyas initiation there, and then later he traveled to Puri and received association. He stayed in a Madhva temple in Puri, but there in Puri he had association of a Gaudiya acharya, not one of our principal acharyas that we know so well, but very educated, very learned, and he introduced him to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the teachings of the 6 Goswamis and the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami. And so he, Baladev, became well acquainted with both Madhva's teachings, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, through teachers. There was a stage where he wanted this sannyasi who was training him to give him another diksha, and the sannyasi said that's not doable because you already have mantra from the Madhva line, but you can make a pledge. And so in a formal way, a semi-formal way, he made a pledge to just be a strict follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and live the rest of his life that way. So one of his books, Prameya Ratnavali, he made commentary, as many of our. He made commentary also on other texts, including Isopanishad, a commentary on Tika, means commentary, on Tattva Sandarbha, and here's a whole string of other writings that he personally took responsibility for. There's 2 at the bottom. There's a phrase Aishvarya Kadambini, and his Shiksha Guru Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also wrote a book by the same name, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's book, it's the same title, but the topic is more about the the sweetness of Krishna's activities and behaviors, etc. in Vrindavan. There's lots of rasika topics in Vishwanath's writings, and in Baladev's writing, it's the opulences of Krishna in the Vaikuntha realm, in the Goloka realm. The Bhagavan features of Krishna. It's not. They have very, very similar mood. However, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur was over the top with teaching, expressing, living within the realm of rasa. He was a Rasika Bhakta, as a follower of Rupa Goswami, like anything. And so that was what his commentary was about. Additional commentaries, Stavamala. Stavamala is a writing of Rupa Goswami, and he wrote a commentary on that. Gopaltapani Upanishad. So because of his Madhvacharya training, he was well acquainted with the particularly strong Vaishnava portion of the Upanishads. Gopaltapani Upanishad is one of them. A commentary on Laghu Bhagavatamrita. We all know what that one is. Vishnu Sahasranam. He gave a certain name to it. So he is very diverse in his writing. And although he was initially trained in Madhva's line, his mood is that of Rupa and Sanatan. And so in each of these books, commentaries, etc., bows, let me offer obeisances unto Rupa and Sanatan, calling them veritable clouds in dispelling the dust storms of Mayavad doctrine. So Madhvacharya was keen, and Rupa and Sanatan were also keen. Their approach was different. The points of emphasis were different, but they're equally strong, particularly strong. And as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, and as Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta and our whole line. But he, Baladev, particularly regarded Rupa and Sanatan as very strong in this regard. There's not many, because of his age, so long ago he appeared. There's only drawings and images of his likeness. In this particular one, there's the Govinda Dev, indicating Govinda Bhasya, standing behind him, and then Baladev with his hand in his bead bag and books on his lap and ready to give us Krishna Bhakti. This is a painting, an illustration of Bhakti Pragya Keshava Goswami. This is the sannyas guru of Srila Prabhupada, who was in Mathura and gave sannyas initiation to Srila Prabhupada and one godbrother, insisting that he do this. And so Prabhupada, after his insistence and understanding his intention, Prabhupada accepted sannyas while residing in Vrindavan. Here's another, this is during the Kartik month, where he's not shaving and not thising and thatting. Here's a more other times of the year photograph, actually, of what he looked like. And he was a very scholarly person. There's a nice history of Keshava Maharaj, but celebrated scholarly personality, and a contemporary of Srila Prabhupada himself. Loved him very much. So here's his verse he wrote in his glorification. Srimadva Sampradaya Sri Chaitanya Kula Rakshaka. All glories to Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushana, who is the opulence of the Sri Madhva Sampradaya, the decoration of Sri Chaitanya Dev's dynasty, the protector of the Sri Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and a great-minded, lion-like acharya. He would roar like a lion. Speaking on behalf of the personality of Godhead, and speaking on behalf primarily his Shiksha Guru, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. There's a nice history going along with all of this. So he was not born in a Brahmin family, which is an important detail for us to understand. Although he became a great, triple great acharya, he wasn't born in a Brahmin family. He didn't have that kind of upbringing and training from childhood. He was born in a merchant family near Ramuna, a very celebrated spiritual place in Orissa in the 18th century. As a young boy, he had an strong inclination for study. So his father consented, as young boys would be, regardless of the family profession. He was, in a Sanskrit school, learned Vyakarana, but he also learned about poetics, because one of his writings was about poetics. To be a capable writer of Sanskrit text, poetics is almost required, because there are things that are subtle and not so easily understood, and so they're sometimes expressed in poetic language, or the authors themselves are poetic in the way they express, so to understand their intention, their meanings, and so forth, a poetic education and training and penchant is needed. So he had that. And logic, he ended up being a great debater in, even in his youth, before the circumstance with the challenge of the Gaudiya line. So after he completed his studies, normally a young boy would go back and join his father and take up his father's occupation as a merchant. But he didn't want to do that. Instead, given how strong and determined he was, he went on pilgrimage instead. And he went to Karnataka, we know as Karnataka, then it was Mysore. And he studied Vedas at a Tattvavadi monastery. Tattvavadi means followers of Madhvacharya. We find this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the followers of Madhvacharya were identified as Tattvavadis. Tattva means truth. Vadi, they're the doctrine of the truth. But it was, in a particular persuasion of that doctrine of the truth, or Tattvavad teachings. He became a follower of that Tattvavad school, and he accepted sannyas initiation. Means sannyas vows and sannyas mantra and the mantra diksha. He's an initiated disciple in Madhva's line. This becomes important later. Those of you who read the Back to Godhead article, you know why that's so. After he accepted sannyas, he migrated to Puri, and from Puri, he settled in Madhva Math, and because he's now quite trained in scripture, he was, as was somewhat popular during his time, he would engage. He would go, not like a bully picking a fight with people, but questions would come to him about your teachings, this and that. And so he was very strong in his teachings, and he spoke strongly on his teachings, and from different schools of thought. Because during this time, this Madhvacharya was well established, but there was plenitude of other ideas, not only in Puri, but all over the country. But Puri was a seat, a spiritual seat, and therefore people from different spiritual backgrounds or pseudo spiritual backgrounds resided there and were taking advantage of many pilgrims that would come and so forth and so on. So he was strong in his understandings and his presentation of his understandings. So here's the name of the sannyasi that he took shelter of in Puri, Radha Damodar Goswami. And Radha Damodar Goswami, most of us are not so familiar with these names. Nayananda was a disciple of Rasikananda. He was a disciple of and a grandson of Rasikananda. And the Radha Damodar Goswami was his disciple, Nayananda's. So as one goes along, his name appears again and again. Is not one of the most prominent names. We'll see the disciplic line shortly. So he's there, an important personality, but not like the six Goswamis. It's not. He doesn't find his way into the disciplic succession line that Bhaktisiddhanta wrote, and it's published in many of Prabhupada's books. That line of disciplic succession. Our disciplic succession doesn't include Radha Damodar Goswami, although he was very important personality in helping Baladeva become so prominent. He trained him in the Sandarbhas, and we saw one of the commentaries written by Baladeva was Tattva Sandarbha, and it's a very elevated book. All the Sandarbhas, and Tattva Sandarbha is packed because it's an introduction, one could say, to the whole of the Sandarbhas. It's very, very important literature, and he learned all this from others, but primarily Radha Damodar Goswami. I mentioned he wanted Radha Damodar Goswami to give him Diksha, but he said, you've already received Diksha, but I can accept you as a Shiksha, in a Shiksha relationship, and specifically it's described in his Baladev biography that what was done was a vow was taken that he would be a strict servant and follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which he was for the rest of his life. Here's the disciplic line. Gauridas Pandit. Gauridas Pandit is the grand spiritual master of Shyamananda. Certainly we know Shyamananda. Shyamananda is one of the three personalities that was trained by Jiva Goswami in our disciplic succession. Narottam is commonly named as one of the three, but in our disciplic line, but simultaneous, same age, disciple of Jiva Goswami was Shyamananda. But by Diksha, he wasn't a Diksha disciple of Jiva Goswami. He was a Diksha disciple of Hriday Chaitanya, who was a disciple of Gauridas Pandit, and that's a nice history. On Monday, we're going to hear about Shyamananda. So if you're still around on Monday, you'll hear more about the details of what these first three names. And then a disciple of Shyamananda will also, in his life, we'll hear about Rasikananda. Very powerful, unique personality. And then comes Nayananda. Nayananda. And Radha Damodar, and then Baladev. So that's the line of, now it says Diksha, disciplic succession. He wasn't a Diksha disciple of Radha Damodar. He was a Shiksha disciple of Radha Damodar Goswami. After all of this time spent in Puri, with the encouragement of Radha Damodar Goswami, he moved to Vrindavan. And when he was living in Vrindavan, he very quickly found the association and took shelter of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And there was a deity that in Vrindavan that he worshipped, a Shyamasundar deity in Vrindavan. His two prominent disciples, he didn't have, writing was more of his gift. Of course, there were naturally people who were attracted because of his scholarship and bhakti and so forth, but he had only two disciples, these two prominent disciples. Here's their names. Now comes a major portion of what you'll find in that Bhakti Godhead magazine article. And the details go something like this. There was Pathan rule or Muslim rule of much of India, but in this area, it was the Pathan ruler that was benevolent during the time of Rupa Goswami, but still also it was a risky time during the time of the six Goswamis. To be prominent Vaishnavas was a riskier life situation. So without all the details about Rupa Goswami and the other Goswamis, Akbar was a more benevolent ruler, and the more vicious ruler was Aurangzeb. And Aurangzeb, one of the histories of Aurangzeb was one time he was riding through or in the vicinity of Delhi Agra Road. He saw in the distance at night this lamp on top of the Govindaji temple, like a lamp, a fire, a flame, on the way up, 7-story tall building. And he was so aggravated, he sent some soldiers to come the next day and smash the temple. So the upper portion of the Govindaji temple is no longer there. It was much, much bigger and ornate and, amazing structure. And in addition to destroying temples, he was well known for destroying deities. And the Gaudiya followers at that time, they were not just concerned about a Muslim ruler, but Aurangzeb. So it said they took shelter of a king who was a Vaishnava and had an army and was strong. And so there's details and details and details and details of how the deities, principal deities of the Goswamis, were taken from Vrindavan. The idea at the time was it was a temporary shift just for their protection, but they'd never returned. But for different reasons. So the shift went from by Radhakund, not in the Kund, but near the Kund, and for some period of time, and then a little bit further where there was a fort and some fortification, but then it wasn't just the Muslim rulers, there was also some dacoits, Jats they were called. So I don't know the history so well. It's written in this magazine article, so you can go through it. But at a certain point in time, there was concern for both groups, from or about both groups. So the king at that time was the grandfather of Jai Singh. So he brought his army and took the deity to what was then called Amber. And Amber is this is my understanding. It took a little bit of research because there's not a lot written about it in our Gaudiya literatures. But Amber is like a district, like Mathura is a district There's a city, and then there's a district. And so Amber was a district, and there was later, much later, the city of Jaipur was built in that district. So it's sometimes referred in literatures as Amber and sometimes referred to as Jaipur later. Pink City, it's called. The city of design. It was designed that way. It was a nice place. Very nice place. So the deities of the six Goswamis were taken, and in this Galta, it's like a hill and a valley area. So sometimes referred to as the Galta Mountains or Galta Hills, and sometimes as the Galta Valley. So there's a simultaneous history. You'll find some detail in this magazine article where there was this like kind of a schism amongst the Ramanuja followers. Rather than detailing what that schism was, some said this and some said that, and those that said that physically broke off. They're still Sri Vaishnavas, but they had an emphasis that was different than the other group. And they migrated in a northern direction. And one of the principal places that they ended was in this Galta region. The reason was there was a king who was a Vaishnava and a powerful Vaishnava, and through many generations, the three Vaishnavas, eventually they became called Ramanadis to distinguish them from the South India Sri Vaishnavas. They're North India Sri Vaishnavas, Ramanadis. They were being sponsored by or protected by or, giving gifts and given protection, given whatever their needs were. They were honored by this dynasty of kings in the Amber area, in the Galta region. So they were privileged. And that was nice. Except what happened was when this king, Vaishnava king, brought the deities of the Goswamis for protection and safety to the Amber region, the Sri Vaishnavas got a little nervous. Their income was at risk, and their notoriety and their special privileges were at risk. And so it was an appropriate ground for dissension, and is a big dissension. And it was particularly big because there was a father, Ram Singh, was the powerful soldier, and then his son died quickly. Then there was his son named Jai Singh, who, when he was just 7 years old, he became Prince Regent. And when he was 11 years old, became the king, 11-year-old king. And he had a great liking for Govinda. Now, the Ramanadis saw his great liking for Govinda, and they saw what that meant as years would pass, they would lose their standing. And so they started making some noise. Complaining, criticizing. And those kinds of criticisms aren't just like, they can be vicious. So one of the things that they said, I mentioned already, this Gaudiya Vaishnava line there's no such thing, because resting upon scripture, Padma Purana says there are four sampradayas, and you're not one of those four. So who are you people? You're Gaudiyas. You know, the king, 11-year-old king, has a particular partiality for the worshippers of Govindaji and Govindaji. He had much affection for them, but he's also king and has to, deal with people that are saying, you people aren't real. You're fakes. You're not bona fide. You're not one of the four from scripture. And we, Sri Vaishnavas, we worship Vishnu. Now, you're not worshiping Vishnu. You're worshiping an avatar of Vishnu from their perspective. You're an avatar of Vishnu, Krishna or Govinda. But where's Vishnu in your worship? In your worship, you don't approach Govinda or Krishna through Shalagram Shila. You don't even have Shalagram Shila. That's a no-no. That's 2 strikes, by the way, if you're a baseball player. And they've got 4 strikes against the Gaudiyas. They have no commentary in Vedanta Sutra, because it's on the strength of Vedanta Sutra that one may approach a deity. The philosophy is needed to do the worship. You don't have a commentary in Vedanta Sutra. So you're not qualified to worship the deity. Your deity worship is wrong, and you're not qualified to worship the deity. So they started getting like noisy. Turn the worship over to us. We'll worship the deity because we're qualified. And then it got really, offensive. This worship of Srimati Radharani, who ever heard of Radharani? Where's Radharani in the scripture? Has anybody asked you that? Supposing, you've got some leaders of another sampradaya saying, where's Radharani in your scriptures? In scripture, not your scriptures, scripture. And Lakshmi Narayan, yes. Sita, yes. But Radharani? And then, came this whole Swakiya and Parakiya topic. You know that one? Yes? Yeah. So in Krishna's pastimes, there's no marriage. So it's Parakiya, relationship, conjugal relationship outside of marriage. And you're worshiping her by the side of Govinda. But, in the spiritual realm, the picture is they're married eternally wed. They're not boy-girl outside of marriage. That's adharma. And you're worshiping this adharma figure, Radharani. So we demand, remove Radharani from the altar and place her in some other place. You can worship her as Lakshmi, but not as the consort of Govinda. Like, really testy. So the deity of Radharani was moved from the side of Govindaji. And, underlying the whole thing is you're not one of the 4 sampradayas. So, 4 strikes and you're out. And 3 strikes, you're already out. So poor Jai Singh, 11-year-old lover of Govindaji, but he's also the king. So Radharani was moved. And he then wanted to be able to respond properly to the Ramanadis because they're strong people with scriptural this and that and speaking as if with all authority. And there wasn't a challenge like this before, but there was a reason why they were challenging. Big problem. And a complicated network of events leading up to the big problem, like Aurangzeb in his threatening to smash deities. And it was going on in different parts of India also, not so, but cruel leaders. So what happened was the king of Jaipur was already initiated in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, but he was obliged to remove Radharani and refused to allow the pujaris of the Gaudiya tradition to worship Govinda. So he sent a messenger to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Vrindavan because the Gaudiya seat was Vrindavan. The deities came from Vrindavan, and the leading numero uno acharya, elderly like anything at this stage, was Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Help! So messenger was sent from the king. And Vishwanath understood by hearing from the messenger what was going on over there in Ambar or Jaipur. And it was terrible to hear what was going on. But his age was such, and his physical condition because of his age was such, it wasn't realistic for him to make that journey and do the needful. Fortunately, there was most qualified Baladeva Vidyabhushana Shiksha disciple who they had intimate dealings. So he knew what Baladev knew. He knew his capacity for debate. He knew his capacity for scripture. He knew everything. And so he indicated to Baladev, you're going to have to go there and write a commentary in Vedanta Sutra and then answer all these other things. So he gave him, Vishwanath, the description is not so prominent, but it's in Vishwanath's biography, it's very prominent. He spent exhaustive time with the most qualified student or disciple, Baladev, to train him how to answer all these challenges on the basis of scripture, and to be able to be ready to write the Vedanta Sutra commentary that says it all based upon Vedanta Sutra. So Baladev came to Jaipur. When he came to Jaipur, he was a nobody. They didn't know nobody knew who he was. And when he came saying, I was requested by the king to explain the Gaudiya position, it was like, who are you? And he gave his name and gave his, his background and credential. And so they said, so there's different, there's some that are subtle and, they differ. One prominent biography says he was given 18 days. Several of them say like this, by the, who can write a commentary on Vedanta Sutra in 18 days? Superman. But that was the time frame given. What is said in a principal biography is he came before Govinda deity and prostrated himself full dandavats for 3 days, day and night, praying to him, not taking any food, not taking any water, just praying to him. At the end of that third day, the biography says that Govindaji appeared to him in his dream or in his mind and instructed him, don't worry, everything will be just fine. I will dictate. You just sit there and write. How'd you like that kind of an instruction? So that's what he did. Govinda appeared to Baladeva in a dream and instructed him to write a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. I will dictate to you what to write, and therefore no one will be able to refuse to accept it, refute the statements. So there he is praying to Govindaji. And here's in the part of his commentary, the earlier parts of his commentary, may he, that's Govinda, who so mercifully and munificently was kind towards me and bestowed his favor by ordering me in a dream to write down his own commentary, which he would compose, and which contained such renown among the learned circles that they bestowed upon me the title of Vidyabhushana. So before it was Baladeva, and now his title. Bhushan means an ornament, and Vidya means knowledge. One who has the ornament of knowledge. May that dear friend of Srimati Radharani, who holds him dearer than her own life, be glorified. May that Sri Govinda be glorified. Now they gave him 18 days, and 3 days was paying obeisances. Then he maybe took a Prasadam break, who knows. So very short time to write such a document as a commentary on Vedanta, because it's voluminous and very cryptic, and it's a sutra. It's very difficult to understand. But he set himself to the task of writing Govindabhashya, being dictated to by Govindaji himself. And after composing his Govindabhashya, so we, in this BTG article, he was confronted. He presented the manuscript to the Ramanadis to examine. And, their first comment is, we don't accept any of this because, there's 4 sampradayas and you're not one of the 4. And he said, pardon me, but I've initiated in Madhva's line. Oh. Then when we examine your commentary, we want to make sure that the teachings of Madhvacharya find their way into this commentary. I said, yes, you'll find. Because as the Prameya Ratnavali, he knew Madhvacharya's teachings, and he wrote his own that are they're mirror, but it also, he knows clearly what the differences are. Now, in the course of preparing for this, an ISKCON scholar, so I can't say, it's, how authentic and authorized it is, but an ISKCON scholar wrote something that says these are the 4 areas that that Baladev indicated are differences between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings and Madhva's teachings. There's probably some truth to it. There's probably some differences. And anyway, I'll take a look at it again. If it's worth sending to all of you, I'll send it to all of you. So he knew. So in the commentary in Govindabhashya, there are statements that are in the line of Madhvacharya. And the Ramanadis knew. So he's from that line. His teachings, Madhva's teachings, are found in it. And then came this, topic of Radharani. So he was prepared, and mainly prepared by his prior um, teaching from Radha Damodar Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, how to answer that question. And a short answer is Radharani's name is not mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but in other Puranas, her name is directly mentioned. And by name, she's identified in Vedic texts. So he knew what those texts were and made references. You objected to our worship of Radha with Govinda on the superficial grounds that they are not married. In verse 40 through 42 of Vedanta Sutra, I have presented the true position of Radha in relation to Krishna. Radha is the eternal energy of Krishna and is never separated from him. Their relationship may be parakiya or swakiya, but that does not affect the eternality of their union. The separation of Radha and Govinda you have effected is artificial, like removing her from the side of Govinda, and therefore offensive to the Lord, who holds deep affection for his female energy. So he went and had verbal discussion with others after having this dealing with the Ramanadi worshippers. Here's one of those references that he made. This is, there's a section of scripture called agamas, and those agamas, one of the things that the agamas deal with is worship of deity. And in the worship of deity, Brihat Gautamiya Tantra, there's some agamas that are not Vaishnava and some that are. This is one of the ones that is. Radha, here's the translation. Radha is the supreme deity, full of Krishna, full of all Lakshmis, full of all beauty, the most attractive. Radha is the most perfect Lakshmi. This is his premise. Radha is the most perfect of Lakshmis. She's the goddess, as the goddess of fortune is unto Narayana, Radha is unto Krishna. And on the scripture, the authority of scripture, Vaishnava Tantras or Vaishnava Agamas, he made this statement. In his writings, as you all know, at least to some degree, there's reference not to Radha by name, but to Radha by personality. This is in the section where the gopis are Krishna's called the gopis to engage in rasa dance with him, but they were proud of their special, not privilege, but their qualification to be in this relationship with Krishna. So he disappeared, and then they went mad, searching for Krishna. Certainly, this particular gopi has perfectly worshipped the all-powerful personality of Godhead Govinda, since he was so pleased with her that he abandoned the rest of us and brought her to a secluded place. Whoops. Sorry. So this confrontation with Ramanadis, Jai Singh, he's the king. He's initiated in the Gaudiya line, but he's also a king. And he was yielding to their pressure, but now Baladev's victorious. And to establish that victory, he established a deity, a Vijay Gopal deity. A very nice deity. We'll see photographs of the deity. There's a photograph of the deity. and in Amber or Galta. Now the different deities have different unique visual features. The brass deity by his side is Radharani. Here is the line of deities as they're now found in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Samadhi area, his temple and Samadhi area. What's it called? Who in the room knows the name of the place? Huh? Yeah, Gokulananda Temple. Thank you. Thank you. So the tall deity was Baladev's deity, and Baladev's deity was placed here in Vrindavan, but originally established in Galta. And he disappeared in the year 1768. So it gives us he's that from the time that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed, then there's some, you could say, period of time, not a vast period of time, but not too terribly long after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's departure also, and had a very important role in rescuing all the deities of the six Goswamis from being subjected to the Ramanadi, because if it was going to happen with Govindaji, then it meant all the other deities. That the whole thing would have been turned upside down. The years and years and years of history of the six Goswamis and their worship would just have been trashed. So it was a very important task that he accomplished. In one sense, a contradiction that sometimes it's been questioned. What audacity! Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, and he went ahead and did a commentary anyways. The circumstance. So he did what he did under the order of Govindaji. So somebody can criticize him, or some person's, audacious, has no right to do that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Anyway, he did what he did, and he's honored for what he did. And a very important personality. We'll go back to the very beginning here. His commentary in Vedanta Sutra and his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada honored especially and dedicated his Bhagavad Gita commentary. How much of ISKCON rests upon Bhagavad Gita as it is, and how much Bhagavad Gita as it is rests upon Baladev's commentary, or Baladev, and who he is and what he did. So it's a nice thing to do on the appearance day or disappearance day of Baladev Vidyabhushana, to honor him. And if you did not yet get a chance to go through that article, I'll say it as I said at the beginning, because some of you came a little later. Please read it carefully. Read it at least twice, because there are subtleties that you may not pick up the first time through, and it's important for us to understand how we got to where we are, and we're indebted. All Gaudiya Vaishnava followers are indebted to him. Of course, he was qualified and he was empowered, but he gets credit for what he did, protecting philosophically, so that we worship Radha Krishna. It has happened in ISKCON, when Prabhupada was establishing Radha Krishna deities, and some persons would say, "Hey, what's going on?" Prabhupada was equipped. And so ISKCON followers may also have run into that here and there. But, Baladev. So it's good to know some of the details in case you happen to have somebody ask you. And even if you don't have somebody ask you, it's good to know on the scripture of authority, on the authority of Scripture. Why are we doing what we're doing? Is what we're doing authorized by Scripture? So here was like test by fire. And the Ramanadis didn't change their worship, their views, but they had to honor what the Gaudiyas do, or the worship of Radha Krishna. Later, it became big issue of Swakiya Parakiya. Big issue. Baladeva Vidyabhushana, no, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote 2 books specifically on this topic and a number of commentaries specifically on this topic. And in Vrindavan, there were scholars and worshippers and pujaris and pandas that didn't like it at all. They didn't like it so much they had a plan to kill him. It was like a whole nice description. It's a really interesting description. Here's the description. It's a nice description. As old as he was, he had a daily practice that he would do Govardhan Prikrama. And when he was doing Govardhan Prikrama, he would gather flowers and bring the flowers back and place, worship his deity with the flowers that he gathered on the Prikrama. And did it every day around the same time, in the wee hours of the morning. So those that wanted to kill him, they knew his behavior, his pattern, his timing, his everything. And so they got their weapons, their choppers, and they were going to attack him and chop him to pieces. When they saw him passing, they followed. And when they followed, all of a sudden they didn't see him anymore, but instead they saw a young Brijbasi lady. And they approached the Brijbasi lady saying, "Did you see a sadhu?" And she turned, and her beauty and her smile and her sweetness, she said, "No, I haven't seen any sadhu." And they were so charmed by her voice and her demeanor and her everything. "Who are you? We haven't seen you here before." She replied, "I'm a maidservant of Radharani," and gave her name, "and I'm gathering flowers for Radha to give to Krishna." And then all of a sudden, I don't know if it was a sound vibration, but poof, she disappeared. And in her place, there was Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. They were going to murder him. And now he just disclosed his spiritual identity, why he was doing what he was doing. They fell at his feet and offered, they explained their intention. He said, "I know your intention. It's okay. And I forgive you. Your bad intention is okay." Because without that, they would be responsible for attempted murder or murder plot, because that's what it was. And there's, heavy killing and killing a brahmana and killing a brahmana sadhu, like terrible. Destination would be terrible. So That was a result of his Baladeva Vidyabhushana, no, Vishwanath Chakravarti, excuse me, Vishwanath speaking so strongly, because he, Vishwanath, it's just a long, it's a nice, his biography is also very wonderful. He was an ardent lover of Rupa Goswami. When he was born in a Brahmin family. When he was 16, he had finished his grammar study. Now he's studying the writings of the Goswamis. When he was 16, he wrote 3 commentaries on Rupa Goswami's writings. '16 commentary. Ujjvala Nilamani, Lagu Bhagavatamrita. Just read it when you're, an adult. What to speak of 16? What to speak of write a commentary on it? Lagu Bhagavatamrita. And Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 16. And for the rest of his life, Rupa Goswami ki jai. And he certainly was well acquainted with Jiva Goswami's writings, who didn't cross that line because it was really touchy. Parakiya Swakiya. It was so touchy. He didn't make a big writing about it, but Vishwanath understood why he did what he did, and Vishwanath just crossed the line and wrote books about it and commentaries about it, and very explicitly, as we just heard from. So, what Baladev expressed in his Vedanta Sutra commentary comes from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which comes from, ultimately from Rupa Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, great personality we're honoring today. Let's see if there's some discussion. Wow, 10 minutes to 8. Yes.
Hey, Krishna Maharaj. I have a couple of different questions, but the first of which is, earlier you mentioned that one of the points that the Ramanandis had made against Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage was that there was not the presence of a Shaligram Shila.
Is not what?
Presence of a Shaligram Shila, or there was no worship of the Shaligram Shila?
That's because the Sri Vaishnavas have that procedure. You're not following the procedure. And where do they get that procedure? From Scripture. It's not somewhere else. That's from Scripture. And you don't do that. You Gaudiyas don't do that. No Shaligram. And so why? Because from the Sri Vaishnava perspective, and from many Vaishnavas' perspective, there's all the avatars are incarnations or expansions of Vishnu, or Narayana, who's the source of Vishnu. So you worship Vishnu, you worship the Shalagram Shila, and then through the Shalagram Shila you can worship the appearances of the various avatars. You don't do that. You're not following. And why? Because the avatari is sort of it's not scripturally, by common sense, but also scripturally, it's not imperative. It's not wrong if someone does, but that their understanding should be the right understanding. That was the issue. on that particular point. Another?
The other thing I was going to ask was about in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, there's Diksha disciples and there's also Shiksha disciples, and that's how the lineage has continued until today. So is there a
Yeah, I think I
difference?
have to correct the language that was on the screen because for the reason already mentioned. Radha Damodar Goswami or Radha Damodar Maharaj was not the Diksha guru of Baladev. He was a Shiksha guru of Baladev. I think I have to correct the language.
I was but I think there's other instances, right, where it's passing through a Shiksha disciple instead of like a direct Diksha disciple, and that's how the lineage has continued. Does that ever become a point of contention?
Does it ever become a point of contention? Is that your question? Well, for some people, it does. There's singular and there's plural. Guru and gurun. Just like Baladev was a Shiksha disciple of Vishwanath. He didn't receive Diksha from Vishwanath. He didn't receive Diksha from Radha Damodar Goswami, but he received Shiksha from him. So they're in one sense equal but different. So the language is important, but so the connection is not through Diksha line. The others, yes, but not. Okay. What else?
One last, like, to follow up to that question. So
Yeah.
how do we, what are, like, how can we defend ourselves, or what is like a philosophical point that we can use, kind of keep in our back pocket that helps
When you
us?
say ourselves, do you mean the Gaudiya line or you
Yes,
personally?
both. But I think for me
Well, be
personally,
specific.
me personally, like, how can I know what is a way to defend this point? Like, there's no difference between a
Well,
Shiksha and Diksha
okay.
disciple.
Mantra is not. It is most important, and loyalty to one's adherence and submission to one's shiksha guru is imperative. It can never be transgressed. Having said that, then shiksha also becomes extremely important when there is acknowledgement from diksha guru that one may receive shiksha from someone. And then that shiksha personality, shiksha guru personality, becomes on a par or equal with. You know, it's there's tradition. I'm not shastrically grounded enough to say what is the shastra that says what I'm about to say, but there must be shastra that says it. They're different but equal. You know, when with the permission, the blessings of the Diksha Guru, one can accept Shiksha and hold that Shiksha personality, Shiksha Guru personality, of highest regard, resting upon the consent and acknowledgement of Shiksha Guru, of Diksha Guru. And that person may become as prominent, or in the case of Baladeva Vidyabhushana, more prominent. He had disregard for Madhvacharya. He didn't dismiss Madhvacharya. That was one of his statements. It wasn't just clever; it was a fact. He was initiated in the Madhva line when they were challenged by the Ramanadis. Who are you? We don't respect. You're not from. So excuse me, but I am. So, and with that consent. Now, where's the detail? I don't know the detail in any biography of Baladeva's life. Did he get consent from Madhvacharya's followers that you take this special kind of relationship with Radha Damodar Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and it's just fine with us? I don't know of any exchange like that, but there should be some formal exchange. It's not tacit. It has to be. It should be explicit. Just like receiving mantra is explicit. And once receiving the mantra, then that's very strong. Tomorrow we're going to hear about Gangamata Goswamini. And, she also received mantra from a guru in Vrindavan, although that wasn't where she was from. And receiving that mantra was it was a big deal. And she never deviated from that. So it seems that the question you're probing is, for you or for us, how do we view this shiksha diksha thing? And the summary is, diksha is most important, and under the authority of diksha guru, certainly one can receive shiksha. We all receive shiksha instructions, but diksha is imperative. And once the diksha guru, the dedication to diksha guru is so important. And then to deviate from diksha guru, you don't do that. If diksha guru gives blessings, such as such person, yes, his teachings are the same as my teachings, and for whatever the reason, proximity or this reason, that reason, you may receive diksha or shiksha from him. Fine. And then that's so for you and me and the rest of us. It's the same, spiritually the same. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
I go.
I have a more general question. Hopefully it will be helpful to the devotees in their practice.
Okay.
I've often heard it said that Gyan and yoga are considered external practices from Bhakti's perspective. Not sure if you've heard that phrase but
Not like that, but that's okay.
But at the same time, we understand that yoga and Gyan are extremely deep.
You're saying gyan or dhyan? So
Yeah, both, but Gyan is what I'm saying.
D.
No, with a J.
J.
Yeah.
Gyan, okay.
But it will lead to the other, because from the world's perspective, those are very deep practices.
Okay.
But I'm also aware that they use the material energy to quiet the mind and whatnot. So how is mantra yoga that leads to dhyan different from bhakti when we chant non-mantra for prem? Can you describe the difference of the process?
It's a little off topic. It's a nice question.
Apologies. I'm just trying to get inspired to chant.
Okay. And I a little sharing before I answer your question. I've been very dedicated for a number of years now in giving association to the devotees in China. And when it comes to questions and answers after a class, like a popcorn machine. And so I have developed like a little flashcard that says, just ask questions on topic, please. And I'm not saying to you, I'm saying to them. And here's Prabhupada's 3 times I've heard him in lectures say, if I start answering questions that are not on the topic of what we just spent 30, 40, 50 minutes discussing, then it'll all be lost. People will go over to other places, and the focus of way we spend so much time is gone. So another time we can address your question. That's, that's how, one of the ways that Prabhupada would address off-topic questions. Thanks, but, another time. For that reason, it just, the purpose is diffused.
Mm.
It was a nice way to encourage people to stay focused on what we just spent a whole bunch of time doing. Now back to your question, because it's an important question. It's worthy of writing an essay about it, or if not a book about it, or something, because it's a worthy topic. There are different ways of answering. One of the ways of answering is the whole process of yoga in general is compared to a ladder, and the different steps on the ladder, and all the steps of the ladder lead to the top step. That's the purpose of the ladder, to get to that top step. So this and that, or the other, separated from bhakti, it's not part of the yoga system. It doesn't have the full effect. It doesn't give the full effect of what yoga is meant to give. One cannot, we'll say it stronger, one cannot achieve the spiritual realm, Krishna Loka, by those processes alone, without bhakti. Take those processes, and it's not like, put it in a blender and turn it on high speed and you come out with a smoothie. Then you get mixed bhakti. But Shuddha bhakti is where, with faith, the destination is this top step. And so I may take some assistance from this and from that, and in doing so, that's the purpose. And if I don't have that purpose from the get-go, now here comes a nice definition of what is bhakti. What is it anyway? So, a nice place for you to look to get a scriptural answer is Madhurya Kandambani. You've heard of that book?
Yes, but never read it.
Okay. So in the beginning parts of Madhurya Kandambani, I think it's chapter 1, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes the seed of bhakti, bhakti lata bija. And the bhakti lata bija is having faith in the attainment of something that I have not yet attained, but by this I'll get to that which I wish to attain. So I'm in the lower rung, but I know what the higher rung is, and it's going to help me get there. So then he, Vishwanath, having such faith in Rupa Goswami, he invokes the definition of bhakti from Rupa Goswami. It's what bhakti isn't, what bhakti is. So it's exclusive. And on the exclusive is jnana and karma. Exclusive of this. So it doesn't mean in bhakti there isn't jnana. It doesn't mean there isn't activity or karma, but it's not on the material plane anymore if it's with this one thing. So that's the seed of bhakti. That's what bhakti is. It has, so to grow a tulsi plant, you need a tulsi seed. You can't have sunflower seed or something else seed. You have to have a tulsi seed, and tulsi seed comes from tulsi flowers, and tulsi flowers. So you have to have a tulsi seed. You have to have the right seed to get the tulsi plant. Same, back to your question. If the seed is what bhakti is, this exclusive commitment to Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Krishna alone should be pleased. And not anything else. Krishna should be pleased. Then you're okay. And then you start mixing it and you get mixed. And you have a mixed seed. And that's what you're going to get. Unless there's somewhere along the way association with someone that has the unmixed, and they communicate and they live it, and then the mixed can become unmixed. But if without that sangha of the unmixed, it's going to remain mixed. Nice. You can say, mode of goodness. And, approaching the realm of, as the yoga ladder, can you approach, the upper step? So then, what's the seed? And okay, I didn't start with a seed, but I started with something, Gyan and Dhyan. I started with what I started with. Is it possible to move to transition to the unmixed? Yes.
That makes me think of just a response like, does Dhyan, a mind that is, steeped in Dhyan, does that aid us in our bhakti practice later?
It can. It can also be a detriment. I'll give a little example. Me. Once upon a time, I was a college kid. A few lifetimes ago, feels like. And when I was a college kid, there was my introduction to mantra meditation was from two primary, well, there are multiple, but it got down to two primary sources. One was Baba Ram Das, who was Richard Alpert, who was a Harvard professor, who was going around when I was in college, in undergraduate school, doing what was known as the college circuit. And what he would do was he would chant Hare Krishna. And then Prabhupada chanting Hare Krishna. So I was like, they're nice. I mean, I was a seeker. I found out where Richard Alpert or Baba Ram Das lived. I went to meet him at his home in the outside the suburbs of Boston, and rang the bell, and he received me at the door. I was this college kid. So during his seminars or during his classes of chanting, he said, become one with the chant. It sounded cool. What does it mean? I didn't ask him at that time. I just so I went to continue to go to his classes and chanting. And then finally I got it. He said, in the beginning, there's you and the chant. And when you become really accomplished, it's just the chant. And I said, forget this guy. Because what he's saying is, you become Krishna. So it's not that you by chanting, I become Krishna, I become a bhakta. Although it may to the ear sound to be the same. It's not the same. The sound vibration the effect is not the same. The mixed, what to speak of offensive, it's not the same. Although it may sound the same. Did that answer your question?
Yes, very helpful. And just to bring it back, can you say anything about Baladev's chanting practice?
Baladev chanting practice. You want to know about Baladev?
Is it known? Or was he just too busy writing?
I don't know. You see him, this little illustration, he's got a bead bag, so he must have done it. But what his practice was, initially it was Madhva line, and then became the Gaudiya line. So how did the Gaudiyas chant? How you chanted? How the Gaudiyas chant? That's how we chanted. And then in association with Vishwanath, whatever it was before Vishwanath, it became Vishwanathized, which means, he's a Rasika Bhakta. He became infected with that, ecstasy of Rasika Bhakti from Vishwanath. So there he goes writing commentary in Vedanta Sutra and, dealing with the challenges of the Ramanadis. So he's not intimidated by anything. But, whatever he's doing, that's it. That's at the foundation and the basis, and other stuff comes out, but that was at the basis and foundation. That which he had evolved spiritually to be Rasika Bhakta like Vishwanath and the other Gaudiyas who he had association with before going to Vrindavan. Those in Puri, they were also very elevated Vaishnavas. Rasikananda being one of them. Okay. Yes. It's a trick microphone. There you go. I just heard a click.
Hi Krishna Guru Maharaj.
There you go.
I have a curiosity question. It's like, why did the Ramanandis separate from the Sri Vaishnavas of the South? Is it ideological differences?
Yes.
Or?
I can't recall. Once upon a time I studied it, and my memory is like a sieve, and I forgot it. But it was a philosophical difference. It has something to do. It has something. This is my memory, faint, foggy memory. It has something to do with property. Is it a one-time thing or is it an ongoing thing? You know that one.
Yes.
Yeah. So my memory says that was the issue. And it was like, philosophical issue. There was a schism. So they went their own way. I'm not sure that's right, but that's my memory. Okay. Their worship is the same, and they're this, and everything's the same. They're Sri Vaishnavas through and through. Okay.
Except Radharani, right? They don't worship Radharani.
What's your question? Do you want to take the microphone, please?
So they don't worship Radharani then?
Who?
Ramanandis?
Oh, no.
Why? If they are Sri Vaishnava.
And the answer is Swakiya or Parakiya, excuse me. That's why. Satyabhama Krishna, yes. Radha Krishna, no. Clear? Hare Krishna. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I had a question. You said that Baladev was initiated in the Madhva Sampradaya?
Yes, he was.
And then he changed to Gaudiya Sampradaya.
No, he became attracted to and had affinity for the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. That is, the rasa-based teachings, because Madhva did not emphasize rasa. Madhva emphasized Vaikuntha or moksha, liberation. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't emphasize moksha. He emphasized rasa. the mellow taste of serving the personality of Godhead with everything, with all love. It's not like Madhvacharyas don't have the idea of love, but they have the idea of love in the opulent sense, or Aishvarya sense. You know that word, Aishvarya? No? Opulence. You know, majesty, the majestic Narayan. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not majestic, but madhurya. You know what that means? Sweet. You know, the sweetness of Krishna in Vrindavan, the sweetness of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, that attracted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart and his followers. And so there are the majesty of the divinity of God. He's all powerful, almighty, he's all this, he's the creator, and he is all those things. And he has sweet, loving exchanges with his devotees. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emphasis.
But the two sampradayas are kind of a lot separated. So didn't he have to come somehow? Because they both generally don't have much connection.
The foundation of majesty continued for Baladeva, and layer on top of the majesty is the sweetness. You know, here's something you've heard thousands of times. The residents of Vrindavan, they don't care if Krishna's God or he's not God. We don't care. We don't know. We don't want to know. It's okay. He is whoever he is. He is our dearly beloved. He's our son. Let me ask you, in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha realm, does Narayana have a mother and father? No way. But in Vrindavan, Krishna has a mother and father. There's a sweetness to that loving exchange between the mother and the father, and the child and the child and the mother and the father. And Krishna's in Mother Jasoda's arms. Not only Mother Jasoda, all the ladies. And he loved it. And they loved him. And there was a sweet exchange. Not in Vaikuntha. No such thing. There's a sweetness in the pastimes that Krishna experienced and displayed to others and moved the hearts of others in so many ways, without the majesty, without the mightiness and the creator and the powerful and That's there. That's a substrata. And then on top of that doesn't matter whoever he is, whoever he is. He can lift Govardhan Hill not only with his left hand, but the little finger of his left hand for 7 days. Come on. He's not God. He is whoever he is. The love is so strong that they don't even go there while he's exhibiting his majesty, his mightiness, his power, etc. It's okay. That means the intensity of the sweetness of their love is so strong, it just overwhelms the majesty, even when he exhibits it. And many times he doesn't exhibit it. He cries. He plays. He does sweet things. And they love it. And it's otherworldly kinds of, they love it. So much so it's beyond we can't even imagine it. It's beyond the mind. This is the meditation part. It's beyond the mind to imagine that which lies beyond the mind. You can't go there with the mind. It just doesn't have an entrance into that You can get a sense, like look into the sky at night and see stars in the sky, but that's about it. This is one of the prayers of Lord Brahma. This is responsive to your question. When Lord Brahma was made his big boo-boo, he kidnapped the cowherd boys and calves, and then things happened. When he came before Krishna with offering prayers. One of his prayers was, as demigods, we can see by your mercy, we can see your pastimes, but these residents of Vrindavan, they can enter into your pastimes. That's different. The sweetness is the enter into, not just, wow, he just listed Govardhan Hill for 7 days. Wow. He's God. Okay? Good. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When there were questions raised about Srimati Radharani, I'm just curious to know if Padma Puran and Brahma Vaivarta Puran were not sufficient at that time for people to.
I don't know what scriptural authority they accepted and didn't accept. Their main objections, you read in that Back to Godhead article, it's very well outlined. But the main issue was Swakya Parakya. And so what's the authority? You're saying these Puranas have some authority, but the rules, the agamas, the rules for the scriptural rules for deity worship are very particular. I don't know if you know this, but I'll share with you. The deity worship ministry, international deity worship minister, the chairman, the head guy, they just recently conducted 2 10-day intensive 10 hours a day, I think, whatever it was, training session then first in Houston, and then the break, and then in Atlanta. And one of the persons who was present for that was Namaruchi. He was present for both of those. And I asked, what was it like? Because they're both finished. Did 39 students one place and 35 students in the other place, something like that, for 10 days. That's intensive. Like marathon. What about work, and what about school, or what about anything? They went, and the teachers went. So there's rules, but it's a supreme. So the main theme that Ramaruchi was saying is the deity is a person, and there's procedures for worshiping the deity that help purify and elevate consciousness. So if one doesn't follow those rules, the Ramanadis were saying, then who are you people? We don't respect those that don't follow the rules. You're a criminal. You're a lawbreaker. So here's rules. To follow the rules, please. To the point where, remove Radharani from the altar and put her in a separate place and worship her as Lakshmi, not by the side of Govinda, because of the Swakya Parakya topic. No, now back to your question. Were they not aware? In deity worship, it's not just describing the pastime; it's the deity worship that leads one to the stage of perfection. Through that channel, you follow the rules to get to that place. Okay. Paramakruna, yeah. I think we're going to end with this last question.
Thank you, Maharaj, for such a nice class and the Q&A. So, when Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushana presented the Swakiya Parakiya aspect, as if I understood correctly, you mentioned like the way he explained it was that they were married.
In the spirit, in the spiritual realm, yes.
Right. So
that was his point.
So, I'm just asking, how come the Ramanandis? I mean, the Srimad Bhagavatam clearly says it's Parakiya. At least that's the question that Parikshit Maharaj also asks. And then Sri Shukadev Goswami explains it from a Tattva standpoint, but that's the question right at the top of his head. And there's a long section.
Well, your question is similar to his question, or my response is similar to my response to his question.
So, yeah, how come it's such a strong? I mean, we know from our Sampradayas, Acharya's writings that it is how to understand that, but just from a scripture standpoint, it's straight out there. How is it possible to justify that it is Swakiya? What arguments would... And his question was, how come from Padma Puran and all that? But there also, I haven't read Padma Puran or any, but I would imagine it's...
Keep your question simple, because you're getting a little complicated for my little brain.
So my question is, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's very clearly Parakiya.
Yes.
And how did or using what arguments that are not coming from Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas, but from scriptures, not the Gaudiya scriptures,
yes,
to justify or to convince them that it is Swakiya, not Parakiya? When they have such a strong justification from Srimad Bhagavatam
the answer
itself.
I gave over here. The answer is Rukmini Krishna, yes. Satyabhama Krishna, yes. Radha Krishna, no.
My question, I thought you said he was able to convince them that it is Swakiya. Isn't that...
No,
with Sri Radha Krishna, not Rukmini Krishna.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
What I said was, in the spiritual, I can go back to the text. Maybe I should do that. But let me do that. Whoops. In verses 40 through 42, that's Vedanta Sutra, I have presented the true position of Radha in relation to Krishna. Radha is the eternal energy of Krishna and is never separated from him. Their relationship may be Parakiya or Swakiya. But that does not affect the eternality of their union. Okay?
Clear.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi.